Markle's worst nightmares are coming true. As her heavily hyped lifestyle site, American Riviera Orchard, crashes and burns amid reports she has lost all interest, the so-called difficult Duchess is fast turning into a human roadblock to Prince Harry's dreams of rebuilding his lost popularity back in Britain. Scheming Meghan led her hapless husband astray like a lamb to the slaughter because he is hopelessly naive and so unschooled in the ways of the world that it's doubtful he even knows how to book a table at a restaurant. Now Harry is all at sea, in a quandary, desperate to regain his shiny star status, but unable to do so unless he leaves his troublesome wife on the West Coast and returns to his home country alone. Who says so? Yes, it's acid-tongued Tina Brown, and she has struck again. Last week, the respected editor, royal author and former close friend of Harry's late great mother, Princess Diana, devastatingly dismissed all of Meghan's ideas as total crap and declared that the cable show actress has the worst judgment of anyone in the entire world. Tina didn't actually mention American Riviera Orchard, but launched 8 months ago and still nowhere near opening for business. The Duchess's alleged money-making machine certainly has all the trappings of a totally crap idea. After the latest momentum-killing legal challenge from a multi-billion-dollar US company that owns the brand name Royal Riviera, miserable Meg is reported to have lost interest, and as a result, her pet project is dead in the water. Meanwhile, her Prince Uncharming seems more restless by the day. Now, ex-Vanity Fair Supremo Brown says that although the British royals would benefit greatly from the feel-good factor that Harry used to bring, they'll never welcome him back as long as Meghan is part of the picture. Ditch her or hit the roadblock. For Harry, that is the agonising question. But there's another problem. William. Unable and indeed unwilling to forgive and forget Harry's spiteful book Spare and the cruel attacks on Princess Kate, the Prince of Wales does not want Harry stealing the limelight. Shades of Charles during his marriage to Diana when he hated her getting all the attention. This is how it rolls in regal circles where jealousy reigns. Making the front pages matters to them. Stir in the fact that William doesn't think that Harry deserves the restored love of the people, and there you have it. No royal rapprochement. The bad feeling between these two once inseparable siblings is off the scale. Meanwhile, behind the gilded gates of the massive Montecito mansion the Duke and Duchess of Sussex call home, all is not well. Crushed by the damaging accuracy of Tina Brown's painful put-downs and still struggling after the Hollywood Reporter's meticulously researched investigation labelling her a terrifying bully who reduces staff to tears, the Duchess has hit a traumatic low point. And just maybe, even the not famously brilliant Harry has worked out that the enticing tale of untold Hollywood riches that his missus sold him was a crock. As the astute Ms. Brown points out, Meghan persuaded wide-eyed Harry that she was a savvy Tinseltown wheeler-dealer who would make them fabulously wealthy megastars. That, to say the least, has not happened. Now, with their $20 million Spotify deal consigned to the scrap heap of showbiz history and their $100 million Netflix deal on its last legs, the Sussexes are staring into the abyss of spectacular failure. Once, they had the world at their feet. Now, for the self-styled King and Queen of California, I'm sorry to say, the only way is down.
I'm sure you've seen the story if you're here. I'm sure you've seen it by now. Richard Eden's piece in the Daily Mail, where he talks about getting that scoop that Meghan Markle wanted to release a new lifestyle brand. She wants to launch this new lifestyle brand that's going to compete with Martha Stewart. It's going to compete with Gwyneth Paltrow. That's the objective. I have heard TIG 2.0 forever. But Richard Eden is like, no, it's not TIG 2.0. It's not interviews with Michael Bublé. It's not, here's my favorite lipstick color by Bobby Brown. It's something big. It's something official. So Richard Eden contacts Team Megs, and Harry and Meghan, so reactionary constantly. I mean, that is to me their biggest weakness. They are so reactionary and they don't really think through the consequences. So reactionary, they will not allow Richard Eden to have this scoop. So what they do is they prematurely launch American Riviera Orchard. They launch an Instagram. The Instagram has nothing. It doesn't even have that video that we saw initially when Meghan's Instagram went live. It was a stories, so it quickly disappeared. And the only way you can watch it today is if you find it on one of Harry and Meghan's fan accounts. But they just wanted to beat Richard Eden to the punch. So they threw up a website to collect email addresses, and they threw up an Instagram to try to collect followers. And Richard Eden's observation over the last few days was like, is this the worst celebrity launch in history? And I'm asking myself the same thing. Where is American Riviera Orchard?
There's a lot of royal news this week. Let's start, shall we, with Prince Andrew, because it now transpires that actually the king has cut him off from all of the cash.
Well, I think he's just got so frustrated that he feels that he has to make Andrew pay his way. He's tried, he reasoned with him, said, why not move into Frogmore Cottage, which would be downsizing from the 30-room Royal Lodge, which is outside the security cordon of the sort of Windsor blanket, as he were, security blanket around Windsor Castle, obviously where William lives as well. So it would seem entirely logical. But Andrew has a lease on Royal Lodge until he's 50, for another 55 years. He's obviously slightly bereft. He's been cut off. He hasn't got anything to do, and probably feeling moving out of a house that he's lived in for some time is a further sort of, well, basically blow to him personally, because he likes living there, and if he has that taken away from him, well, he feels even more useless, as I suppose might be a way of describing it.
I mean, Rupert, I'd like to live there. 30 rooms sounds very nice, but what's wrong with Frogmore? Also, he is not a working royal, therefore he is not entitled to stay there, in my view.
Well, he's got a lease on that place until he's 55, and so he is entitled to stay there.
Sure, but he has to pay, surely.
He's got to pay his way. So there's no money. But according to this report, suggests that he does have means to support, and he's got to keep it to a certain standard. He's got to maintain the place. There are a lot of royal treasures within the building as well, so that comes at its cost as well. But if he says he can afford it, the king is probably ultimately powerless to move him. So this is a dilemma, and it reflects the slightly more fractured relationship between the two. Remember, Andrew always was perceived as the favoured son, and the Queen had hoped to solve the Andrew problem, but it's not going away. And for the King, he's saying, right, if you want to live there, then you pay your way. Don't come begging for me to look after you and your security.
So
I think...
Sorry, you mentioned the late Queen there. How would the late Queen have solved the Andrew problem?
Would she have solved it? Now, that I'm not sure, because he's pretty stubborn, and even the Queen might have become frustrated with him. Obviously, she was hugely disappointed. You know, obviously, there was all the court, settling out of court with Virginia Giuffre and all that. It's never an easy one. And unfortunately, Andrew gets hoisted by his own petard when it comes to his life, his arrogance. The interview and all these things have caused him problems. And at the moment, he's in heel-digging mode in the Royal Lodge.
I mean, according to the Daily Mail, he's made it very clear to the King's advisers they have no right to force him out if he has, as you say, the means to sustain that lifestyle. But this is going to make for a very uncomfortable relationship between him and his brother.
Yes, and there's no two ways about it, because the King wants to try and, in many ways, sort of make the royal family more workable. And you see, obviously, they're going to have some interesting reactions to the report that's come out in the Sunday Times and the Channel 4 Dispatches documentary about where they get money from and all these things. But the king is saying to Andrew, right, come on, cut your cloth. You made your problem. What is wrong for a man? You know, okay, his ex-wife does live within Royal Lodge, but a 5-bedroom cottage would seem to be not uncomfortable within the Royal Windsor sort of boundaries. And his security is then taken care of.
The Duchy Files, an investigation by the Sunday Times and Channel 4 Dispatches revealing full details of the vast ancient estates owned by the King and the Prince William, and the business deals struck to fund their lifestyles. 5,410 land holdings, mineral rights, properties held by the Duchy of Lancaster on behalf of the King and the Duchy of Cornwall for the Prince, and then examined, the Sunday Times and Dispatches have examined business agreements and leases linked to them. They show the duchies generate profits by charging the Army, Navy, hospitals and prison service, schools and councils for the rights to use lands, rivers and seashores seized for the duchies in medieval times. It raised 27.4 billion for the King, 23.6 million for, sorry, million, not billion, 23.6 million for William to pay for their private homes, personal income and staff. They operate as commercial landlords, the Sunday Times says, while holding special status, exempting them from paying corporation tax on their profits and capital gains tax on assets they sell. Charles and William do voluntarily pay income tax on the money they receive from the duchies, minus deductions for business and household expenses. So it's a really, really interesting one, and there's a lot to this, and I want to get into that with Caroline Aston, who's the royal commentator. Caroline, I suppose, let's get into the meat of the story first. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, I think the word here is revelation, isn't it? I mean, these are big figures, big facts. But of course, there's always been a degree of opaqueness about royal accounting. Sometimes I don't think Parliament has always been totally aware. There are certainly things that have been off the record, and let's forget, it's not that long since the royal family started to pay income tax, like the rest of us. The Queen agreed to do that at the time of the fire at Windsor Castle. So it's an interesting programme, but of course you made the point from medieval times. This is like a huge snowball of finance, of property, this enormous package that has built up over 1,000 years or so of monarchy. But of course we live in a world of revelation. The Republican movement is quite strong. We've seen demonstrations. And of course, this story, this programme, coming out at a time when we have Prince William in his 2-part documentary talking about working to get rid of homelessness over 5 years. And then suddenly, riding on the back of that, we have this programme about the vast number of properties and possessions that are part of the royal portfolio. It's a very interesting juxtaposition, really, isn't it? I'm all for knowing what's going on out there. And as a modern royal family, I feel that we do have to have this openness. But how you deconstruct this snowball, this package, and don't forget, of course, the income from the Crown estates is rendered up to the government, who issue a lot of it back in the form of the sovereign grant, the money the royals use to run, well, the business of being the monarchy. I'm going to be tuning in with great interest to see what they've uncovered in the royal coffers.
Let's talk about the timing of this in just a second, but the investigation found the duchies impose levies for the right to cross rivers or dump waste in them, offload cargo onto the shore, run cables under their beaches, operate lifeboats in a public lavatory, and even dig graves. They make revenue from toll bridges, ferries, sewage pipes, pubs, churches, village halls, distilleries, gas pipelines, rental homes and wind turbines. And you mentioned the documentary about William this week wanting to end homelessness. There'll be a lot of people who say, well, you get £23.6 million a year from historic properties that you've inherited. Maybe some of that money could go to housing homeless people, for example, or putting your money where your mouth is. And I know Prince William does a lot of very good work, and I'm not disputing that for a second, Caroline, but I just wonder whether a royal is the right person to have this, you know, to be talking about this in the week that this has been revealed.
Well, he certainly thinks so. It is a paradox, of course, that you have someone who has this vast reserve of property, money, all this stuff coming in, who is fronting this up. But of course, he said, someone's got to do it. I want to use my position, my public position, to front this up. just rather like his brother, was the poster boy of the Invictus Games. Very different thing, of course, because that wasn't involved with vast sums of money coming in from royal properties. But the idea is that someone of high public profile, who is one day going to be our king if all goes according to the usual plan of history, isn't it important that he is aware of these things, fronts it up, makes his opinions known? But as for his own personal money, what he himself gives, donates to charities, that's an interesting point, and I'm sure will be the subject of much discussion after the Dispatches programme reveals the sheer extent of the amount of cash washing around in the royal coffers and how it got there, the historical story of how these rights, these things that people have to pay for, actually built up. Maybe it's time for a complete review of this to make it perhaps a little more in line with modern thinking and the times we live in. Debate is always good, and this looks like being an ongoing one for some considerable time.
Because there's a story this morning, Ray, very good morning to you, which will come as no surprise to you. They're now thinking of dropping the words British Empire from OBEs and MBEs because, of course, it's down to Keir Starmer. There's no way he's going to keep it, is there?
Yeah, this is a lot of nonsense here. And there's actually there are also sources within the palace saying that the king would be open to the suggestion, which just goes to show how much ignorance there is, unfortunately, about our honours system, both at number 10 and also, unfortunately, increasingly in the palace. People don't have a clue, or very few people understand honours, because you actually can't change the name of the Order of the British Empire legally, because when George V created the Order of the British Empire in 1917, the statute said quite literally it will be known forever thereafter as the Order of the British Empire, and by no other name, quotes. So the only way you can get rid of the Order of the British Empire is to actually abolish it. You can't change the name. The other point is the order isn't exclusively British, right? The clue is in the name, British Empire. And they're talking about changing it to the Order of British Excellence. Well, I'm sorry, there are more than 10 other countries in the Commonwealth, all of them black, which are awarding the Order of the British Empire. If they don't mind awarding the Order of the British Empire, I don't see why we would. And an Order of British Excellence means nothing to people in Antigua or Grenada or the St. Kitts and the Nevis. In fact, it's quite colonialist, I would say, and arrogant for Britain to try to change a Commonwealth order like this.
Yes, but you know as well as I do, Rafe, that these are changelings. You know, these are people that want change. I mean, that was the name of their campaign, and they keep saying change as though it's some kind of magical word. And, you know, they love rewriting history. They love changing the way that we look back on our history. They love the idea that in fact, reparations are now on the table for Commonwealth countries, when only 10 hours before he signed the declaration, Keir Starmer said he wasn't going to be talking about it.
Yeah, although now, of course, you have David Lammy backtracking now and saying, having made his, you know, having given so many speeches talking about, you know, giving reparations to the Caribbean, now apparently reparations don't mean money at all, because funny that once you get into government and you have to deal with real issues properly, you understand what a nonsense reparations is when you're talking about a sum of 17 or 19 trillion pounds, which is more than the entire GDP of China. And so now Lammy is saying, oh, well, reparations really means closer relationships and investments with Commonwealth nations.
Yes.
Really? That's not what you were shrieking from your you know, beer crate when you were on some corner talking about reparations.
No, opposition pulpit. Yeah, what do you make of this story the Sunday Times had this weekend about the royal assets, the duchy assets, 5,410 different sort of properties by and large, ranging from a hole-in-the-wall pub in Exeter to a warehouse for the NHS in London, Armed Forces Training Centre in Dartmoor. I mean, I wasn't that surprised, but I mean, this smells to me like a kind of a bit of a lefty campaign to try and just destabilise the royal family.
Yeah, this is a real hatchet job done. I mean, there are legitimate questions to be had, and there are legitimate debates about corporation tax that you can have. But I watched that Dispatches show, and just even in the way that the script was written for the narrator, it was clearly done with Republicans behind the wheel of this. And it follows just 2 weeks after they put out a similar documentary about Winston Churchill saying that he was pro-segregating American troops when they came over here by race, which was completely false. In fact, he wanted the opposite. So they seem to be on this sort of, you know, I think they're completely in the grip of wokery, and there's no more sort of far left outlet, as we know, than Channel 4, but they've really raised their game in the woke Olympics, if I can say that.
Now, on Wednesday, Prince William is heading to South Africa. It's the Earthshot Prize. Amazingly, he founded that 24 years ago. I can't quite believe that, actually.
Yes, it's been another one of his...
Oh, sorry, 4 years ago. No, 4 years ago. I lied.
Yeah. Yes, 24 would make it, you know...
I was going to say.
Well, he wasn't quite 10, but he's early...
No, he's 42.
Yeah, so you've given it 18. I mean, I know he's always had, you know, the environment and homelessness have always been part of his DNA. And this is his really, I suppose, his global vision, and he's passionate about it. So and it is something that has seemed to derive great success in trying to achieve things. He's not saying, I'm going to solve the environmental issues that people may believe are out there, but I'm going to make sure that people who've got initiatives around the world have a chance to get some funding. And he obviously has the ability to bring high net worth companies, whatever, together. And it's going to be a glittering ceremony in South Africa where they announce the awards. It is something that, as I say, he's really passionate about. And it does seem to have a resonance with lots of people and achieving a degree of success. Wherever you're coming from, you can't say that it's nothing but a good initiative to try and find a way of using things around the world. But of course, he's always got to negotiate that political area of whether he's seen to where does he stand on the issue. If he can remain neutral on it and say, right, I'm just helping people get out there and do things that might have an impact on local areas, wherever it is around the world, then what's wrong with that?
So you said that you've got to get things right the first time. And one story that's been circulating this last week is by Richard Eden of the Daily Mail. And he says that earlier this year, he received a tip that Meghan Markle was going to launch this lifestyle brand called American Riviera Orchard. He called her people for a reaction. And their reaction was to quickly launch an Instagram page so they could beat him to that scoop. They were so determined to not allow him to have that scoop that they launched this Instagram page. There's no content on it to this day. And so now, after Richard Eden admitted this and shared this story, the tone has been, was that a fail? Was that launch a fail? I mean, she sent out a couple of baskets of jam that we couldn't purchase. Normally I would go, she's building anticipation, but it does feel like it's been a significant amount of time since we heard about the initial launch, and there are no tangible products for us to purchase. How do you respond to that execution?
You know, look, as someone I've spent more than 25 years in marketing, right, in branding and helping drive strategy. Now, you know, from her vantage point, she wasn't probably prepared to be scooped. But what I will tell you is the reaction or the lack of content that came out didn't necessarily help her initially. I think, you know, again, the name got scooped. I think, again, you know, when we think of Meghan Markle, do we think of fashion? We do think of other brands that she's invested in that are lifestyle, that are clothing. But it fell a little flat when there was a jar of jam with an insignia that resembled something related to what you would see in Europe. And so I think it fell a little short of what consumers were looking for. And I definitely think that it caused a lot of chatter. And to your point earlier, it's been 6 months, right? And there's been no updates, there's been no content, there's been no messaging. So in this case, if I were advising her on what to do, I would say you need to hire somebody that really is familiar with brand execution, but also somebody that's going to help you get the messaging right, because there's a ton of negative content right now online. And while you can recover from that, I don't necessarily think that the response to potentially getting scooped was well thought out, right? Or we would have seen a message of, hey, it's coming soon, we're not ready, here's when we plan to unveil it. And then all we're left with is rumors, right? And what the media is reporting on. And so in some cases, you know, it's great to have all of these eyes, but with there being nothing to purchase and no update, it just is only going to allow the folks online to keep talking about it.
Caroline, I promised to ask you a question about the timing of this. This is certainly a big investigation. Two very respected investigative journalistic entities, the Sunday Times and Channel 4's Dispatches programme. The programme's on tonight. We know that other media are involved as well. The Mirror, for example, has been reporting this, as have others. Why now, do you think? And do you think something like this, looking at all the origins and a big overview of where all the money comes from for the royals, do you think this is something that would have happened when the Queen was alive?
It may well have happened much more slowly, glacially slowly, but of course we have a new reign. I'm a historian, and this puts me in mind of what happened when Queen Victoria, our other record-breaking reigning queen, died back in 1901. Her son, King Edward VII, completely reviewed everything, had Buckingham Palace tarted up, if you like, brighter lighting, brighter painting, a new broom, sweeping clean. And this is absolutely right. The King is well aware that in today's world, the optics, the figures, our access to that, which is so much different to our knowledge of what was going on back when his mother came to the throne, this is a vital part of creating a modern monarchy, and most interestingly, one that is relevant to us, gives value for money. And now we get the chance to see just how much money and how it is actually being used and accrued. I think it's fascinating. I think it's very important. And as Her Majesty used to say, we exist by mutual agreement with our people. We have to be seen to be believed. And today, of course, they have to be seen to be au fait with how we feel and our lives. And all of this money, the story you're about to hear in Dispatches, does seem a little bit jarring, doesn't it? Particularly after Rachel Reeves' budget and the tax claims.
I think people will find it very jarring, and of course we've had, and you know far better than I do, Caroline, a real movement to make the royals more human. Kate's talked about her cancer, you know, William's talking about homelessness. There are lots of people, lots of members of the royal family. We know far more about them now than we ever have. We're sort of invited, I suppose, to see them as normal people, and they are to a degree, and they have emotions and family dramas and all the rest of it in the way that all of us do. But nonetheless, the life they lead and the money they have and the sources of income they have is a world away from most people. And these stories, I would imagine, will make that gulf feel wider.
Yes, but I would also say this. If you ran a business and after 1,000 years in business, you hadn't wrapped up a lot of stuff, well, it wouldn't be a very successful business, would it? You'd probably fire your CEO. And you have to accept the fact that what we have now is the end product of a very, very long period of development. But that doesn't mean to say that it shouldn't be examined, deconstructed, made more open, because that is the backdrop that we exist in today. Social media is everywhere. Royalty Day only has to sneeze and we know where they caught the cold from. And we've seen huge examples of this with the illness of the Princess of Wales, that void in social media stuff that caused people to fill it with conspiracy theories. And that's just the same across every element of royal life today, including the money. And let's face it, money is a little bit of a difficult issue for lots of us at the moment. So, hey, tune in, watch Dispatches, do the sums, and let's see what response, if any, we get from the royals. Never complain, never explain, but hey, a lot of us want to know the numbers.
I mean, I think it's quite interesting what Tina Brown was saying. The jig is really up for Meghan Markle. And, you know, this thing about Prince Harry being unschooled and naive is what she said in that podcast episode, and sort of not with the ways of the world. He was able to be dazzled by literally anything. She mentioned, you know, he probably hadn't made a restaurant reservation in his life.
Well, probably still hasn't.
Yeah,
don't worry about that.
You know, so the fact that she came in with a bit of chutzpah and a bit of, you know, I can make things happen, that was all just sort of this gleaming untruth about Meghan. And I think the rubber has hit the road with their relationship.
What Meghan, I think, Simon, presented to Harry was a kind of conduit not only to the real world, but a kind of dazzling world that mesmerised him, the dazzling world of Hollywood and showbiz, and they could be famous stars. He knew what it was like to be famous, but this was a different type of fame, and it absolutely enticed him, but she sold him a crock of shit. She is not a passport into Hollywood, and she never was.
It's a difficult one because, I mean, she came off the back of you know, a highly successful TV series. She wasn't yet a film actress, but with the profile that...
Not that successful.
It's pretty successful.
That's a cable show. It's not exactly on NBC, is it, or CBS?
I think it's been the #1 show on Netflix for quite a while. Yeah. So, yeah, anyway, we can argue the merits of how successful it is.
It's not the #1 show on Netflix.
It was at one point.
It is that you just said... You just said it's been the #1 show on Netflix for quite a lot.
Yeah, it was.
That's a lie.
No, it was the #1 show on Netflix.
Years ago.
OK, listen. She was never a film actress, but I should imagine that she...
Not good enough!
But I imagine that she hoped having him by her side would propel her into that stratosphere of being a film actress.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I don't think that has happened. But I don't think that they've done badly. You're talking there about 120 million quid that they've trousered, you know, from Spotify and from Netflix. So, as we know...
Both Spotify and Netflix think that they've been, if I can use this expression,
but they can't...
royally conned.
They can't go back there, but if Harry and Meghan were to walk into pretty much any cable network and said they were going to do a show, they would probably get that greenlit just right now.
No, they would not.
No,
they would not.
I disagree. The fact that we all talk about them so much shows there's an audience for them.
No, I disagree. They're all washed up when it comes to showbiz, and his crap series about that Chinless Wonders horse sport polo is set to bore for Britain when it comes out on Netflix at Christmas.
But you don't know that. You've already damned it without seeing it.
You're right.
So that's just ridiculous.
The one thing you've got to know about me, folks, is I'm entirely unreasonable. But you knew that. But seriously, but I think it will be boring. I mean, the whole concept, the whole idea of
people will tune and watch it. They will bring an audience.
I think that we forget.
He's not even in it.
Well, Netflix, when they were cutting costs, they actually cancelled this series called Pearl that was meant to be voiced by Meghan. That was one of the first things they cut when they were making cuts because they knew that it wasn't going to do well. Yeah. So I think it does come to show that, no, they can't really make content that sells. Yeah. And going back to American Riviera Orchard, yeah.
This is, by the way,
dead in the water.
This, as we talk about, we'll talk about this right now. Yet another challenge to the name American Riviera Orchard, a legal challenge. She's had several already, and apparently she's so pissed off with all of this. She's just had it. She's lost all interest. So it is literally being reported now that American Riviera Orchard is, and I quote, dead in the water.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as looking at the facts, the way that we got a trailer about 9 months ago and nothing has been done since then. With any business, with any show, if we were to start a show next week, we wouldn't be, you know, starting a trailer now for a launch that's going to be in 12 months' time.
We do that all the time with films. We do that all the time with films.
It's not a film.
You have a teaser trailer. You have a teaser trailer. You do that all the time with products saying this product is coming out. That's a ridiculous argument.
She trailed American Riviera Orchard because she found out that some members of the media had found out about it and she wanted to get in there first. I don't necessarily condemn her for that, but it did mean that she kind of came too early and she didn't have anything ready. She made that little video, and ever since then, it's been downhill all the way. In fact, it's been nothingness all the way. This project of hers, which was supposed to sell beige towels and cutlery and crap like that, very overpriced, has been mild.
You don't know because it never launched, so you don't know how much this stuff costs.
I told you, Simon, I'm always unreasonable.
Go on.
No, but it would be expensive. It wouldn't be cheap. However, ever since she announced it's been mired in legal wrangling, because all these people keep coming in and saying, well, we've got that name. You can't have that paint. In fact, the trademark Association in America said you can't use American Riviera Orchard because it's geographical and it's too vague. Now you've got big companies and saying, We've already got Royal Riviera. So it's just Shitsville all the way.
Prince William rolls up his sleeves to clear plates at a homeless shelter. Look, I've always been very impressed with his ethic when it comes to the homeless and the big issue, and obviously that comes from his mother, Princess Diana. And there's some really nice little anecdotal tales in this article.
Yes, and talking this from the ITV documentary that went at the end of last week. And yes, this is another one. We talk about the Earthshot Prize as his passion. Homelessness is also the area that he says, right, I've got to try and make an impact. So it's showing these various projects around the country and how he tries to get involved, and people say he has a way and understanding. And yet again, it comes to the same principle that you might say, well, why is he leading a project for homelessness? And, you know, there will be critics saying, well, look, here's a man who lives in a gilded cage in Windsor, and he's going to be the king. So what would he know to understand? But I suppose what he would say is, look, I'm going to bring all these various stakeholders together. I have the means to do that, and let's try and make some impact and help some people, just like the king with his Prince's Trust that he started, now the King's Trust, was helping people on the work ladder who may not have had the chance to get going, and some investment, and his King's Trust. This is very much his, I suppose, UK project that he wants to try and help. Is he going to cure homelessness? No, he probably isn't.
No.
Is he, though, going to try and help people with a leg up and make sure there's a route out somewhere that people might be able to turn to? That is, I think, his ultimate aim, is that at least people out on the street might feel there is somewhere they can go that perhaps can give them. And there are other great charities as well, but he has the, I suppose, the profile to bring people together, and that would be the take of it. And it wasn't. You could see him getting stuck in, and why it means so much to him. And the testimonies from people around him was very good.
Yeah, no, apparently he was meant to be doing kitchen duties, and he artfully managed to avoid them by going for a natter with some people, and the kitchen supervisor went, "Oi, you, I'm watching you, get back here and do some of the dishes." And he was told to actually clear the plates. And I rather like that. That makes him human.
Prince William has landed in South Africa. He's been in Cape Town for a matter of hours. He's just become this 4-day tour of South Africa, which is to promote, of course, his Earthshot campaign. And he's going to be giving out award money, a total of £1 million each, to the lucky winners. That's going to be happening on Wednesday. He's not with the Princess of Wales. He's on his own. But he did reference her in a very sweet statement that he made before he landed in Cape Town, in which he talked about the importance of Africa to him, because, of course, it's where he proposed to the then Kate Middleton. It's where he last was back in, I think it was 2010, and I was on that tour with William and Harry when William went out to see all the work, the brilliant work that Harry was doing out in Lesotho. So I think it feels really poignant that he's back in Africa for something that's really, really important to him, something he's so passionate about, this Earthshot Prize, which he's launched, which is very much his baby. You know, he hit the ground running. I think one of the reasons he's there for, you know, he hasn't just flown in, has he, just for the prize giving on Wednesday. He's flown in a few days earlier. One of the first trips he did was to meet with 120 young environmentalists from around Africa and Asia who are taking part in a new program for youth leaders. Obviously something that Prince William's really, really keen on. And then he went on to a secondary school in a township. So again, a sort of really a wonderful opportunity for him to see life in Africa, in South Africa, a place that he absolutely loves. And he got involved with a rugby coaching session with a foundation called the Atlas Foundation. It's a charity that's working to address and deal with child poverty, which is a big issue out there, and was founded by the former English rugby player Jason Leonard. So William got hit the ground running, straight into it. I think he got tackled in that game. I think the kids are absolutely delighted to be rugby tackling a prince. Of course, the highlight's very much going to be on Wednesday and the Earthshot Prize, which, you know, Kinsey is just, well, I think it's going to be his life's work. I think it's going to be his legacy.
Folks, here comes an announcement. I'm going to take this very seriously. American Riviera Orchard is and you've got some comments, I believe, Samara, about Meghan.
Yeah, I mean,
the glee in somebody's downfall is just worrying.
$1.7 billion more in turnover than American Riviera Orchard, that's what I'll say. Yeah. Resna has said, Tina Brown, thank you for saying the truth. This should finish Harry and Meghan. All over the world, we know that these two are full of crap. It's over. They're lazy, they're drifters, they're shameless and not worthy of being called royals.
Resna, you are right. You got some more?
Catwoman has said Markle isn't a good actress. Didn't she only get... Hot take. Hot take. Didn't she only get the part because of her husband? She has never been a Hollywood actress and she's never had any talent. If she went for auditions, she wouldn't get any parts.
So says
Simon?
Catwoman 7462.
Catwoman sounds like a very wise... Cats are very smart animals.
Yeah, this
Catwoman
is just the
hit the nail on the head.
This is just the ramblings of a jealous minority who have nothing better to do.
Stop being so rude about our viewers.
Well, they're being rude about somebody they don't even know. It's ridiculous.
Well, you don't know them either. Why do you have the right to be rude about...
Why do they have the right
to our
be...
audience?
Don't
listen to the village idiot, everybody.
If you want to sit there spewing this sort of bile and hate, go ahead. What a waste of time.
Don't spew hate. What's wrong with hate, by the way? I hate the way people have a go at hate. It's my favourite emotion.
I hate the way people have a go at hate.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Hate. Let's get more hate in the world. Let's make hate, not love.
Hazel has said, Meghan and Harry conned the UK out of $41 million for a fake wedding. A wedding a wedding they said they hated and that they were already married. So all the thousands that stood for hours, travelled from afar to cheer and wave and wish them well were all conned. I'm so angry. Pay the money back, you grifters.
I mean, it's about 5 years ago and she's still angry.
Yeah, but when they said they said actually we got... I mean, that's such a shitty thing to do. We actually got married secretly beforehand, so there. And then the Archbishop of Canterbury actually tied the knot for us. He conducted the ceremony. One day later, the Archbishop of Canterbury... No, I didn't. So, Meghan, you were lying, weren't you?
Yeah.
One more comment, I believe.
Is it a positive one?
Let's hope not.
There's not much positive to say, Simon.
Yeah.
Tiger has said the problem Meghan has is that she's not as bright as she thinks she is.
Yeah, exactly.
With the amount of money she has, she should have had success by now, but she is her own worst enemy. The only thing left for her is a divorce from Harry and then selling her book and the inevitable reality of a TV show of life after Harry.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah, that's really
she
good
will
comment.
sell her story one day. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And remember, Simon, you've got to eliminate the positive and accentuate the negative. I always go by the words of that famous old...